These exercises are from Elliot Halst. It's breathing from your balls when you land with the heels. You go, and if I proceed to do this for 10 minutes, you'll notice my voice will go from all the way up here and it will slowly drop down, sounding like it's super deep as I exhale out of my testicles.
The Eagle has landed.
Anyway guys, now that the government of Canada has made cannabis legal nationwide, I know it's so exciting! Legalize, as Simon would say, I figured this was the perfect opportunity to share the terrifying tale of my first time ever dabbing, also known as hot knifing. Because even though this only took place like 4 or 5 years ago, the dude who dabbed with me didn't have an oil rig or a pen or anything. But anyway, before I get into that experience, I'd also like to point out that coming soon is a documentary that I filmed with Simon of Open Mind, the biggest drug channel in Germany, which showcases what it's like to weed in Canada.
Okay, so we are here in front of the cannabis store in Montreal.
This right here is some of that legal weed. I think it's really cool that they have a government warning saying that cannabis can be addictive on it. It also shows, and this is the best part, the THC and CBD content, so that finally people can know exactly what they're taking. Comes in these like medical looking containers, and it's got the child safety lid on it. Anyway, I'll go more into detail on this in the documentary, which is coming soon. Now, before we get into our story, let's segue over to pretend scientist Adam, who will explain who will explain hot knifing. Because the inclusion of a lab coat and faux glasses adds a layer of almost manipulative authority, forcing you to trust me more. Step 1. Find 2 knives. Step 2. Make a ghetto funnel using an empty plastic water bottle, or even a used up roll of toilet paper. Step 3. Heat your metal knives by placing them on a stovetop oven. Step 4. Once hot, place the shard onto one of the knives. Step 5. Hold the funnel in your mouth and press the second knife firmly onto the first knife, sandwiching the shard between them. Step 6. Inhale through your funnel the moment you see smoke begin to rise. Step 7. Give yourself a nice pat on the back for successfully hitting shards, just like your granddaddy used to do in the 70s. Or just like Adam did 4 years ago in New Zealand. Step 8. Sit your high ass down, because if you're anything like me, you are now experiencing reality in reverse. Alright guys, before we get into my story, I do have to let you guys all know that I'm not making this video to encourage or discourage anyone. My story is kind of a scary one, and I know that weed is now legal in Canada as well as many other places. However, just because a substance is legal does not mean that it is harmless, as I'm sure this video will explain to you here. To be clear, as most of you already know, I make these videos for safety and harm reduction to help you guys be safe. Thank you. Alright guys, it is now time to get into my story of my first ever time dabbing. I must admit before I get into this story that I do feel kind of strange. But anyway, that's besides the point. Let's jump right into this story. Now, as with most of my stories, this one did take place in New Zealand. Big shocker there, and it's another big shocker that I said big shocker there because I usually follow with that line. So, this story takes place about a week after Jasmine had come back home, well, home to New Zealand from Canada. This was a time when I was living at a house with, it was 3 flatmates, and she was at work, and the one guy who was like the lone shark dude was asking me if I've ever tried dabs, which they call spots in New Zealand. No, I've never spotted. He told me he had some oil, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, let's try it. He said that we were gonna have to use 2 knives. However, we were missing one thing. We didn't have any kind of funnel. You know, what ended up happening was the obvious. He got a beer bottle and smashed the bottom, and that's what we used. Hot knifing with glass. All right. Now, he had kind of talked me into it because he told me that it was a totally different experience than just smoking weed. He said it was trippier, and he knew that I liked psychedelics, so I was like, yeah, I mean, that sounds great. I'm all for trippier. Little did he know that it was just a few months prior that I tried ayahuasca, and this was one of the first instances where I found out firsthand how almost every psychoactive drug, bar alcohol, was different. after ayahuasca, which I feel like went in and just hit my reset button on a cellular level. I didn't want to get that high. That's why I just took one toke. And I remember I was sitting on the couch as the effects were coming on. I felt them kick in pretty fast. I just started feeling very, very slow, almost to the degree where you feel like you are mentally handicapped. Now, for people who like to get, as they call, fucked up all the time, mentally handicapped is the end goal. He asked me if I was okay, because he said I was turning white. Yeah, no, I'm fine. I feel a little nauseous though. You know, I had to save face, had to be like, do the manly thing. I remember my eyes. I've said this before, but this is the most intense I've ever felt this effect. They started to vibrate. I can describe it best with a sound. It's like, almost looked like things were going in focus and out of focus really quickly, or like I was feeling my heartbeat in my eyes, just super tingly. It didn't feel good. And I remember I asked him, I looked at him, I said, man, are your eyes vibrating too? Is that normal? Is that what this does? And much to my surprise, he looks at me, kind of, you know, concerned and confused, and he goes, no, that's not a normal effect. I mean, I've never had that. But have your friends ever had that? No, actually, I've never heard anyone say their vision vibrated before. Are you sure you didn't take anything else today? What? No, of course I'm, what does this guy think? I'm just on drugs all day, every day? It just got more and more intense. And I think my feelings were showcasing dead in my face, because I was probably just sitting there and just slowly looking more and more terrified / uncomfortable. I'm pretty sure that I was just ruining his high, to be honest. I was a buzzkill. I was just feeling so weird and confused. So he suggested that I go in the room and lay down. I remember standing up, and just like in my story of space cookies in Guatemala, same kind of feeling. I had no balance, except this time I actually did slip and fall. Jumps up, he's like, are you sure you're okay? Like, do you need help? I was like, no, I'm fine. I can do this. Slowly just creeping in to my room, get to the hallway, just like, hands on the side of the wall in the hallway, creeping over to my bed. I laid down, I closed my eyes, and back then my lifeline used to be Jasmine. If I was overwhelmed with an experience, I needed to hear her voice to tell me that everything was going to be okay. So her being at work was a nightmare. I figured that I just had to hold on and not freak out long enough until she got home. I just kept telling myself, this is just like, you know, an acid trip, that's all. You just breathe, you can breathe through this, it'll pass. Now, what I was afraid of doing was just freaking out, and it's the unknown. I was afraid of what would happen if I freaked out. The types of thoughts I was having were wild. Every time my eyes would do the vibrating thing, it would feel like time was slowing down, but my thoughts were still moving just as fast, making 5 minutes feel like 15 minutes. I really had no choice but to just wait it out. As soon as you make that mental decision to freak out, at that point it's over. That's why when I'm doing things like eating mega hot 6 million Scoville wings, I don't have any water. Because I know that as soon as I say to myself, drink the water, mentally I've already thrown in the towel, and then it just makes it so much worse because you've given up and you're now attempting to escape the feeling. It's better just to sit with the feeling, ride it out, and try to find ways to enjoy it. Now, for whatever reason, the cannabis was just causing intense paranoia. I was questioning everything. What really stood out is my thoughts became so much clearer. Like I was watching a mental movie, as if I was really sitting in a cinema and watching a screen. So it's like when your mind's like that and you have paranoid thoughts, it's very easy to follow them down a nasty trail. It was just pure anxiety. But somehow I managed to make it, and I think I had fallen asleep. I woke up because she came into the room from work. It would have been something like 12 or 1 a.m. And I remember feeling, this was even like 3 hours later, still high. I looked at her and I explained the horrible experience I had, almost puking, greening out, vibrating eyes, couldn't stand. And then I was like, and surprisingly, I'm still in this, still feeling high. So she just kind of laughed and thought I was stupid for smoking that much. She didn't understand that it was just one hit. And she came, laid down with me, and I slept it off. And that's basically my story of my first time dabbing. I soon realized that dabbing was not for me, because there was no euphoria, no positive effects, nothing about that made me feel good. That could also be attributed to the THC content though. Weed that is just mainly THC, which is a lot of the stuff available today, is by nature going to cause more paranoia than weed that has the CBD in it. The CBD counteracts the effects of the THC and can not only, you know, dispel some of them, but also on its own it has a relaxing synergistic effect. And I found since then, I'm gonna be doing videos on this actually, let me know if you wanna see this, comparing firsthand super high THC weed versus weed that's got an even mix and then different percentages. I think that would be a cool video to see firsthand which one does cause more paranoid thoughts. But anyway, I'll let this video act as a warning to all you guys, especially if you've just recently done psychedelics, because after psychedelics, I've said this before too, weed is so much more potent. It's like the psychedelic opens up this door that was locked, hidden, or unavailable before, but the sensitivity does, with my research, diminish after a while. So probably not forever, but it's a good lesson to just make sure you take care, especially if you just had an intense trip.
Oh, great. No great conversation here. Just
so good.
Just dying. Going into that dark place.
The dark place.
Just doubt your choices.
Yeah. Have you ever gone into a dark place on drugs?
Yes.